Hello and welcome to episode 77 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is January 26th, and together with Goran and Robert, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So today we reach another milestone. For the first time, we have an external guest in our show. Mathias Klein from SAP is joining us, and together with Taka, we will talk about the new DMO to Azure features that helps customers to convert and migrate their SAP ECC systems on-premise to S/4HANA on Azure. But as always, before we hand over to our guests, let's quickly take a look at some of the news from last week. And I think as always, almost a very regular guest, at least from a news perspective, is Martin Pankratz again. So Martin published just today another blog post about integrating an SAP Cloud Portal, the launch service, into Microsoft Teams using single sign-on. So basically here you can already see the results. You have your Teams screen, and then in Teams you have, in this case, the business technology platform included. And he, as always, guides you through all the steps, how to make sure that you really have single sign-on enabled, or what you need to take care of to really embed these external frames in Teams. I mean, the steps are fairly straightforward. There is an application to add a website, but then to really make sure that you have this single sign-on experience, there are a few things that you need to handle, that you need to make sure that this is all set. And then as a result here, for example, you see this beautiful SAP Fiori Launchpad embedded in Teams, and that's obviously not only possible now for the Fiori Launchpad, but then also for other SAP applications. And I think that makes the consumption from Teams extremely straightforward and easy. Good. With that, Robert, you found some other interesting things about Azure NetApp Files.
Yeah, so this public preview for two new features for Azure NetApp Files as stated, single file snapshot restore, which means I don't need to do the snapshot and restore complete volume. So I can do it file-based, single file-based. And also NFS protocol version conversion. That means I can switch from NFS version 3 to 4 and back. Yeah. So these are some changes on the new features which are coming in Azure NetApp Files. I mean, that's all regarding that post. And I think second one, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not security expert, but I think, if someone is somehow have doubts about importance of security in cloud also, I mean, I suggest that just read this article. It's amazing, It's just a report from our side about DDoS from last year. And it's amazing how much information we are collecting and how much information we are trying to analyze to really protect our customers. And it's amazing, it's really nice article which summarizes everything what happened last year regarding these DDoS attacks and how we are responding, how we are mitigated that, and so on. It's a very nice article, summarize everything in a nice report.
Cool. And I guess we can invite Everin again, and he will tell us everything about Azure DDoS Protection.
Yeah. In a series of videos.
Yes. Perfect.
And I think one topic which is never getting old is Rightsize, tight sizing story about, it's nice blog, is altogether something special new there, but it is nice blogs which summarize importance of right sizing and tight sizing and understanding different options surrounding reserve instances. We also had a discussion about that, and how to use Azure Advisor and how to combine different Azure services to really get best from Azure, and not forget to monitor costs later when deployment is done. Yeah, so that's part. And then the second link is going in more or less same direction. Yeah, it's about licenses. Yeah, so we have special so-called hybrid licenses for Windows and SQL Server. Hybrid benefit licenses, yes. This is like a program, and it's actually like all licenses program. It's a little bit complex, and what I like here in this blog is somehow summarize of what is actually behind the Windows hybrid benefit and what is behind the hybrid benefit for SQL Server. It's good summarize, and also additional links to a little bit more deeper information about that. It's very nice blog regarding that, and both of those somehow blogs are very important if we really want to leverage cloud from perspective of utilization, from perspective of right sizing, tight sizing, and that's scalability features of Azure cloud.
Oh, cool, yeah. Perfect. No, I think we haven't talked about these things for quite some time, but as you said, they're really critical when we think about, or when you move your workload into Azure. Cool. Then last one news. It's an symposium, the Azapio Symposium 2022, about event-driven architectures for SAP customers. So that's an interesting webinar or event that we're hosting there, or not hosting, that we're participating with Azapio, where it's all about event-driven architecture. So how can you get events from SAP into Azure? And in this symposium, we have Clemens Wasters joining us for the keynote to talk in general about event-driven architectures, and then we have some customers. Siemens is there talking about their experience using this functionality to send events to Azure, and also Microsoft Digital. Kevin Wilson from Microsoft Digital, so Microsoft IT basically, is also talking about how Microsoft is actually using this event-driven architectures to send events from an SAP system to Azure, and then what we do with the data, with the events in Azure when we have them. So I think if you have time, March 8th, if you can attend, I think this will also very, very interesting. Okay, I think with this, we're already done with our news update. And with this, again, this is a very special episode because for the first time in, how long are we doing this now? 1.5 years or something like that. We have an external guest, and I'm really happy to have Mathias Klein with us today from SAP. We have been working together for a very, very long time. Before I joined Microsoft, Mathias and I were working very long together. But Mathias, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Holger. So first of all, I have to say it's an honor that I'm the first external who is allowed to talk in your podcast. So this makes me feel very special, I have to say. So yeah, so thank you for that. My name is Mathias Klein, as Holger already mentioned. So we used to be colleagues during our time in consulting at SAP. So I'm working in the lifecycle management department at SAP Walldorf, and there I'm dealing with, my main topics are software update manager and S/4HANA conversion. And in the recent time, this little project where we're working together. And this is also how I met Taka, and I guess this is the chance to hand over to Taka, right?
Thank you, Matthias, and thanks everyone. Hello everyone from Redmond, Washington, USA. This is Taka Hoshino of Azure Engineering team. I'm also honored to be on this YouTube video with our special guest Matthias. This is my first time. I have been waiting for invitation from my team, for me to show up on this, channel. I've been a big fan of this channel for sure. I subscribe for sure. So I think at this time, I think we are very excited to share the latest update on our special project that we kick off literally 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, in Walldorf in Germany. We had a kickoff meeting in person in SAP's headquarters, right? Then between SAP and Microsoft. Do you still remember, Matthias?
Yeah, but it's hard to imagine nowadays. But I do remember because it was the last large meeting I had, like you said, and then came this pandemic. Everyone knows the story of this pandemic. Yeah,
I think so many things have changed, since then. But I think now we are sharing the latest update and the outcome of this project Scotty. Project Scotty is kind of code name of database. migration option to Azure is the official name. So I'm bringing up the one slider on this DMO to Azure update as of today, as of this month. So database migration option is SAP the toolset to combine SAP version upgrade and database migration to S4 HANA or SAP HANA. And every SAP customer, need to go to S4 HANA by 2027 or 2030. So this is another Y2K event for every SAP customer. Then SAP has been a little bit restrictive, in terms of number of options for customer to use this DMO. And SAP is very open company. I love SAP for a long time. For my 21-year career in Microsoft, my career has been dedicated to SAP Alliance and SAP, technical collaboration. Then this DMO to Azure is a great addition to the existing methodology. It is not Microsoft doing, conversion SI. It is going to be customer and partner to use this DMO as a tool to combine S4 upgrade conversion plus migration to Azure, all in, everything in one shot, not doing separately, like a lift and shift first, S4 conversion next. That's not what we are talking about. We combine everything in one shot. Then downtime can be easily minimized, so that would be a huge customer benefit. Right now, SAP is now looking for a pilot customer. So it's not fully GA, but we have tons of technical material which was shared in SAP TechEd, 2 years ago and last year, and also Mathias worked at, it was a tons of work of the Mathias team to publish the SAP's official technical white paper, and blog was finally out in December. It was last month. So I'd like to hand this over back to our special guest, Mathias, to quickly, kind of walk us through the latest update and, the sort of, his team from SAP's perspective.
But I think
So, Mathias,
to Mathias, Project Scotty, I think that was also a very interesting thing, and I very much liked the code name or the code name of our project. And I hope after your explanation, Taka, it's very clear why we chose the name Project Scotty for this. So beam me up, just get your SAP system from on-premise into Azure and do a conversion. So it's even a little more than the typical Star Trek beaming, I would say.
Yeah, but I fear it's not as fast as the beaming in Star Trek, but we try to get close at least, right?
It's easier.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Taka. So maybe I also share some thoughts about this project, and one might ask, why didn't SAP come up earlier with such a thing like using the database migration option of the software update manager to migrate systems from one data center to another or to a hyperscaler? And there I have to say, well, actually we had considerations in doing that. I think it was back in 2016 where a customer approached us and asked us, hey, can I use the database migration option to do a data center migration? And back then we said, hey, that's a really interesting question. So let us try. And then we did. And basically we figured out that it works, but the performance was really awful. And because of the reason that there was a lot of communication happening back and forth over the wide area network, and then the latency really hit us badly during these tests. And so this is the explanation how this remark in this DMO SAP note that it says, please don't use database migration option for data center move. This is where it comes from. Also, I have to say, well, SAP Note also says it technically is possible. You can do it, but you do it on your own, so no support by SAP. But then things have changed, especially for the S/4HANA conversion. And if you are familiar with upgrading SAP systems, then you maybe know the concept of the shadow system, so that we are building up this shadow system in the DB to activate all the new objects for the new SAP release you're upgrading to. And this shadow system, it has been in the past always on the source database. And of course, if you now think about the scenario we're talking about, that you want to migrate a system from on-premise to Azure, then of course this means that the source DB will always be on-premise. And our target DB, the HANA, will always be on Azure. So there is for sure a wide area network in between with latency. And of course you can have Microsoft Express route to mitigate the latency. And I guess you talked in this podcast about those possibilities too. But there's communication necessary. But things have changed because in the meanwhile, the shadow system is created on the target HANA DB. And this is why we said, so this changes quite a lot. And this should actually also bring the benefit that there's a lot less communication over the wide area network required for doing the whole procedure. And this is why we said, then, okay, why not try it again with a new setup and together with you guys from Microsoft, let's give it a try and see what we can achieve. And well, we tested it and I think we can say it works. And this is why we now have published this white paper. And now it's maybe a good time to share my document here. So here you can hopefully see, this is the white paper that we wrote together. So all the guys here in the podcast, so like Goran, Holger, Taka, and myself, we contributed to this white paper. And Taka already has shown this picture here. It's also outlined in the PDF document here, the procedure in a nutshell. And basically, this is what we're doing here, is that we are on the bottom, we have our ERP system running on any database, which is supported by SAP ERP. And that we want now to move or migrate this system and do the conversion to SAP S/4HANA with one business downtime to Azure. And how do we do that? We do that by installing an additional ABAP application server in Azure, which is connected to the on-premise ERP system. And then we can use this additional application server on Azure to execute a software update manager and to run more or less, we can say, the standard S/4HANA conversion procedure with the database migration option. Of course, we need some requirements, and this is this page here. We'll take a look at this picture so we can see a little bit more in detail how this actually works. So we have here this Microsoft Express route in the middle, and you see a lot of connections between those two systems. So this is basically, of course, that you can access the software update manager UI, that you can log on to the SAP system running on Azure, but also that the software update manager can establish a connection to the source DB to read the data from the source DB and to migrate it to the target SAP HANA DB. And of course, to make all these connections possible, those ports have to be open on the firewall. So the network setup needs to be established. But the good news is, as soon as you did that, like I said, it's more or less a standard conversion.
And I think with this approach, there are quite a few interesting side effects, positive side effects. Since you are running the application server now, this additional application server now on Azure, where the SUM is running, you can obviously already there leverage the benefits, the flexibility of the cloud of Azure. So instead of being limited to the resources that you have on premises. So typically when customers do a migration like this, obviously they would probably not want to invest in buying additional hardware for their on-premise license, just on-premise environments, just to get a high-performing additional application server where SUM is running, where the software update manager is running. But here they can just spin up a very powerful virtual machine, let it run there, and then once the migration is over, resize it again. Coming back to the point that Robert mentioned in one of the first blog posts, then you can just resize it again. And I think that for me alone is a fantastic benefit that we can have in this architecture.
Good that you bring that up, Holger, because this is really makes a huge difference. And there's another thing, because I just said that we can do here the standard migration or the standard S/4HANA conversion with the database migration option. I mean, if we compare that to before that, you had to use this database migration option system move, which means you start the procedure on premise first, you do an export of the source DB into the file system, then you have to transfer the files to Azure and the software update manager as well. And then you continue the software update manager on the system on Azure, and then you do the import. And now we're doing the database migration on the fly, like you would do it in an on-premise data center. And with this, we have also the possibility to use the downtime optimized database migration option, which means we can actually move tables, large application tables, into the uptime of the procedure. So we can transfer a majority of the data already during uptime, which of course then shrinks the business downtime a lot. There's a lot of potential in there. And another thing, what we also can do, which was also not possible before, is that you can also use the downtime optimized conversion. So this includes the downtime optimized database migration option part, but here we are also moving large parts of the simple finance migration into uptime. And if you already did the S/4HANA conversion, you know that this is usually something you have to do after the software update manager has finished with his part. So this is a manual activity afterwards. So we can also automate it more or less and move large parts of that into the uptime. And with this, we can shrink the business downtime even further. So we have a lot of potential with this procedure, saying that we also can migrate quite large systems. So I guess with the standard conversion procedure, we can manage systems up to 5 terabyte for a usual maintenance weekend. Of course, we have to say that, right? But we know, of course, that there are customers which have more demanding business downtimes, and not 48 hours, it might be shorter. And then, of course, it's getting interesting that you can use this downtime of optimization procedures to really shrink the business downtime.
And
So
I guess, go Taka.
Sorry, Matthias. Let me double click on that part. I think every customer very demanding for the downtime minimization. And can we say the currently supported DMO with system move does not have any option to do downtime minimize DMO, downtime minimize conversion? So is it the biggest challenge with DMO system move? Is that one of the reasons why we introduced this new option?
Well, for system move, there are 2 ways how you can do it. One is the sequential way. So you first do the export into the file system, then copy everything, and then continue on Azure. And then there is something like the parallel system move, which means that we export the data, and while the files are exported, so the finished export files are transferred on the fly to the Azure data center, and there the SUM starts already importing. But also this is happening in the business downtime, this whole migration. So this is the best we can do with system move. But there is no way with the system move to moving the migration of application tables into uptime. This is not possible.
Yeah.
So this is a game changer from my point of view.
It is, and I mean, every migration caused the downtime, and nobody likes the downtime. That's always a critical thing. Typically, it's over the weekend. Business actually says how to do it. So from the SAP side, you did a huge work to optimize it on the upper layers, right? Through those also moving of the tables during the uptime. But on the other hand, what we're all testing here, pushing the infrastructure here to help us also, on one hand, by giving more bigger, stronger CPUs, more throughput on the storage as well. Then we have on this picture was express route, for example. So again, you also mentioning latencies has, of course, the impact there. And those things like express route are dedicated VPN connection, with a dedicated also throughput and IOPS, and also very low latency in general. So these all, when combined, definitely are helping to decrease the overall downtime window, which is crucial in such areas.
Good that you mentioned the latency again, because this is also a topic, and the bandwidth. This might a question which someone might ask now. So, okay, what bandwidth or latency do I need that this procedure works? So what we tested, we can say that if you have at least 5 megabits per second, so bandwidth, and a latency of 20 milliseconds or less, then the procedure actually works fine. And I also have to say this. Performance penalty, you have a certain performance penalty by the latency. However, this is only affecting the uptime. And remember, in the uptime or during the software update manager procedure, the customer can still work with the system. So, okay, it might take a couple of hours longer because of this latency, but it's uptime. You can still work with the system.
Yeah.
And the good thing is about as soon as we have migrated the database completely to Azure, so let's say you have used the downtime optimized DMO, and you migrated already a large amount of the database during the uptime, and then you just have to migrate the remaining application tables during downtime. And then all the rest, like the conversion reports, the XPRAs, the XClass, which are executed to do the data transformation for S/4HANA, everything happens on Azure only, which means we are local in a local network again. So here, for the business downtime, in this part, we do not have a performance penalty. The opposite is the case. Like you said, you can oversize the system on which the ABAP application server is running to make sure that these reports run smoothly, which is already very helpful. And so
one question regarding this target landscape on Azure side. This part is not done automatically, I assume. So we need to prepare that. Yeah. So is there any experience or recommendation? What is the minimum size of application server? What is the minimum size of HANA database? Because this is also very crucial, because if we are not going direction to oversize that, then really this transformation effort is also very attractive from pricing perspective. Yeah? Again, my topic, pricing. Yeah. So is there any plan to automate that, or is there any plan to somehow put that on somewhere blog to share our experience? What is the minimum size of application server and target HANA database?
Let me start maybe with the automation. I think if we look at the automation deployment framework that we already have in place, so with Kimo and Morgan that they talked, or I think last week or the week before, we had Michael Mergel talking about DevOps and the automation deployment framework. I think with these components, we already have a lot of things in place to help customers with the initial setup of the infrastructure. And of course, then you need, for example, to install this additional application server. That's a step that I think is not yet so easily automated. But I think in general, we already have quite a lot of building blocks in place that you can use to set up the...
Yeah, and I guess from the sizing perspective, I mean, there are two parts. One is during the migration, and then after the migration during the normal runtime. So normal runtime is just kind of, it's more a question about the sizing from ECC to S/4HANA, okay, which is separate part of the story. For the migration part, basically, I would always say is oversized, and those kind of costs are nothing, so to say. Who cares? Let it run fast, because here the downtime is what hurts. Those some money that would run for 2 days, who cares, right? It's nothing from the cost perspective, because it's just short, right? So I would say just oversize it as much as you can.
Yeah, and I mean, for the sizing, of course, usually customers are running the sizing report on what kind of HANA you need for your ERP system to make sure that this runs smooth. And then, of course, you will always have also the subs for this benchmarking, which helps the customer to, I think there is very good documentation out there also by Microsoft and with the SAP reference architectures and everything, which really gives you a fast start here. To get you started, and then like Goran said, so if you have the sizing with the subs, then just choose a little bit bigger system to make sure that you have more than enough resources for the conversion.
Great.
So one more question for Mathias. We are now in calendar year 2022. It's a new fiscal year for SAP as well. And I know SAP Cloud Appliance Library team, SAP CAL team, is doing some amazing work to somehow utilize this DMO to Azure Motion. What is your thought for this calendar year and beyond? How your team want to kind of bring this DMO, motion, to the next stage in mid and long term vision, for your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, we're looking into the direction to make it even better, but I'm not quite sure if I'm allowed to talk about our development roadmaps and whatever we are doing here. But yeah, of course we want to improve the overall situation, and you can see the first parts of that, which is that you can deploy via the Cloud Appliance Library. You can now also deploy SAP systems which are not only allowed for usage of proof of concept. In the meanwhile, you can really deploy systems which are also approved for productive usage. So this is one direction in which we go. So I think this is really, here we also work with you guys together. And I think this is amazing that you can get a system with high availability, pacemaker, not peacemaker, pacemaker, and HANA system replication for disaster recovery. So this is awesome, because
I agree.
Setting this up all on your own manually is quite time consuming. And if you can just, with a click of a button, more or less, deploy such a landscape into Azure, this is nice.
I agree. And I think that the work that we've done there with the CAL team, with the Cloud Appliance Library team to deploy such productive S/4HANA systems, it's really great. It's a beautiful experience. You just go to the CAL page, you enter a few settings, and then after a few hours, you have your S/4HANA system running on Azure. I mean, this is a blank system. This is obviously not something that is migrated, but potentially this could certainly be used for a target or something like that. I guess there's some additional work that you would need to do, but I think that's definitely an interesting starting point, I would say.
Yeah, one could think about that. Yes.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, coming back to Robert's question, I think SAP Cloud Appliance Library is gonna be the another channel to somehow gonna automate all the S4 deployment.
Prepare everything.
And we have Whitepaper to support such sizing and the design to kind of minimize the downtime, not just safely convert ECC to S4 to the cloud. Downtime need to minimize. So we kind of put the tons of experience and knowledge in this white paper. So I think this is awesome. But I think, in my opinion, just sitting in the Redmond, engine team, I think this S4 conversion to Azure, this is so fundamental this is kind of core piece of our strategy, and this is a multi-year journey, 2027, 2030. It's a long time, long vision. So I think we can kind of come up with new ideas and innovation, including some partner ecosystem, how we can accelerate S4 move to Azure. So I think we can, I think customer adoption is one thing, and also we can kind of continue this discussion collaboration to kind of come up with new ideas to kind of make it happen. So we are all very excited with this, all this outcome of the last 2 years, and really want to thank Mathias and the entire team.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not really allowed at talking about details, but at least what I can say, we don't consider it done with publishing of the white paper. So we still want to do more here, and we are still in contact with you guys, so especially with Olga. So this will not be the end of the story.
No.
I would also, I mean,
that's at least the plan, yeah, currently, as of today. But plans change. You have to put this, take a disclaimer into the video.
No, I think for me, I mean, Taka talked about these 2 years, but I actually think when we really look back, SAP and Microsoft, we have been working together for 30 years or something like that, and we will definitely continue. And there are multiple projects that we're working on, and I'm sure there will be more and more similar projects.
I think, Taka is sending message that we should invite him till 2030 several times. That was the point.
No, 2050, at least.
Taka wants to come back to Germany for a workshop.
Yes. Yeah, after pandemic. Yes.
And I hope one fine day this is possible that we meet again in Waldorf.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Soon, yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I think with that, I think we covered the DMO to Azure topic in quite some detail. And I hope we were able to provide some insights in what it is, how it is working. I mean, we are already working with a few customers that are using DMO to Azure, that are testing it, that have successfully obviously also used it. I know, Matthias, you did tons of tests before that. So thank you really very much for the collaboration. And I'm sure we'll see more and more customers using the DMO to Azure functionality. Okay.
Yep, just got another request this week for another pilot customer. Yeah.
Perfect. So with this, Taka, Matthias, thank you very much for joining us this week on our podcast. And who knows, we'll hopefully see each other again here on the podcast. If not, we will definitely continue to work together. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.